we made a decision, Berkeley Lakefront Airport, we made a decision last year in September to keep the airport open and to commit to significant investment in the airport from an aviation standpoint, as well as a plan for starting mixed-use development so that Burke becomes an attraction not just for aviators, but also for members of that 4 million person population that wants to come downtown for some enjoyment and some recreation.
Thank you, Ricky. Bonnie, if you could just touch base for a little bit on the tremendous amount of work that's going on at ODOT District 12 beyond what we see from the general travels, but just some of the exciting things you folks are working on in concert with both my organization and other development partners in the community.
Like Deb said, that we are District 12 and we are Cuyahoga Lake and Geauga counties, and we're one of 12 districts, and even though we are the last, we are the best. And we have an operating budget of about $50 million. Wait, I take that back. We've just had it reduced by 5%, so we're at $47.5 million for our operating budget, which is a challenge, and a capital budget in fiscal year 2009 of about $280 million. That fluctuates depending on the large projects that we have going in our district. Some of the larger projects that I'm sure you guys are all aware of that we're working on is the study for the Interbelt project, the West Shoreway project, and also Opportunity Corridor. Those are all projects that are near and dear to the city of Cleveland.
Absolutely. Both city and the region. And Adam, last but not least, what's happening at the port?
Thanks, Deb. Just a bit about port authorities. There's a lot of port authorities in the state. We are economic development organizations, plus or minus, but each community treats theirs a bit differently, and there's legislation that defines them to be slightly different from each other. In Cleveland, we are a creation of the state, but the city and the Cuyahoga County gave us our life 40 years ago, so we're having our anniversary this year. You'll all be invited. As an organization, so we're self-governing, but the mayor and the county commissioners appoint our board. Then we're told to go get on with it. It's really the challenge is how well we work with the business community, the local government, and the community to actually deliver what is in the interest of the community, because we do have some assets and some powers that could be put to good use, but they can't be put to good use by simply our definition. A bit about what we're doing. We have 3 business lines. One is we operate a port. It's right now downtown Cleveland. It's plus or minus about 100 acres. It's what I would call a small, edging towards wanting to be a mid-sized port, Great Lakes port. 5 years ago, the city of Cleveland developed a lakefront plan, and it said to the port, maybe you should move it somewhere else, and we could develop the property you're on to be part of downtown. And the Port Authority thought that was a good idea, so we're in the process of doing that. And we're probably about the only city in the United States and one of the only in the world that have said, let's move our port to do something different, both with the port, hopefully to its benefit, but also to the land that it's abandoning or going to be vacating. So sometimes we say Cleveland doesn't think big and move big. This is big. There's environmental issues, there's recreation issues, there's federal issues. We have this body of water, the Great Lakes, and certainly Lake Erie, that's fresh water, and there's a lot of sensitivity to how we deal with that. So the Port Authority has bought into that in a big way. We're in process of moving it. It's going to take some years, but we've identified a site to the east side of the city that works really quite well for a port and the potential for that port to grow, and we think that port will play a major role in investment attraction for the community, that's the city, but also the wider region. Actually, many people believe the state, as logistics and transportation are much more important in the manufacturing world. So it's where we would say manufacturing and international trade really come together, because if product is moving away from our port or into our port, it's typically coming from another place, another country. So we're a maritime organization, that's in our name. Over the past years, we've been a finance organization as well. We've played a role sort of as a third-party instrument, but a critical role in almost a couple of $1 billion of debt, where we help a third party, a business, or in past a local government or a nonprofit, gain access to national credit markets. where we basically use our powers to issue debt on their behalf. So we'll continue to do that. We'd like to use that capacity, that weapon, in a really quite strategic way, and be party to some investments that are helping the community on a large-scale basis structurally in the future. And lastly, we'll be a development organization in a way, but we're only going to be doing that in partnership with the business community and the community. And so as we vacate our property downtown, in phases, that'll be developed. It'll be developed in concert really with what Ricky's doing at Burke Lakefront, which is a brand new waterfront vision. I shouldn't say it that way. It is a waterfront vision that's been in existence, but now it has the chance, at least in the portions that we own or control, with the city to actually bring that to life. And that's tourism, that's waterfront access, that's restaurants and activities, and maybe some buildings. But it's really to create an environment, a waterfront environment unlike any other city in the country. There's really, again, no other city that really has an opportunity of, certainly the land we're talking about, of 150 acres right on the waterfront, to create an environment, a vision, package that, tell the world that this is Cleveland's opportunity. We could have talked about it in the past, but the port was there, so that opportunity wasn't quite an opportunity.
Thank you all very much. There's an obvious question for the folks sitting to my right, and the challenge that we've all witnessed so much in the last few months, last 6 months, as it impacts transportation and infrastructure. And I look at some of my engineering consultant friends out in the group, and it's this issue of skyrocketing fuel costs. And obviously, Ricky and Bonnie, as you guys look at how that challenge is impacting your operations and the adjustment you're making, Adam and his team can look at that as potentially an opportunity. So I was wondering if you could each touch on how you're coping with that issue from a perspective of management and keeping the businesses running and prosperous. And then Adam, following Ricky and Bonnie, perhaps talk a little bit about what that means for opportunities at the port as we deal with skyrocketing fuel costs.
Well, again, when we look at the airport system, my primary focus is to grow air service. If I'm not growing air service, then I'm not doing my job. And we were very fortunate to have our hub carrier, Continental Airlines, we see as a key partner at the airport, to announce last year in September about a 40% expansion of service. An expansion of that magnitude in one single program is just simply unheard of in this industry. And so that was a remarkable accomplishment for Cleveland and Continental Airlines. Fuel prices continue to rise, however. Fortunately, they're going in the other direction now. Fuel prices are closer to $100 a barrel. But fuel prices continue to rise at that time, and so the industry had to make some tough decisions. And one of those decisions that affected us was Continental's decision to begin to cut back, to reduce service. Now, there were some who were very concerned about that. I mean, it caused me pause. But if I put it in perspective, I think some of you will not be as concerned as others were. In essence, they cut 24 cities. They reduced some frequencies on some other routes, but they cut 24 cities. 10 of those cities were cities that they had not yet launched. They were part of the expansion program. The other 14 were cities that they had launched. However, they were developing markets. Okay, and so we lost the opportunity to new cities, and then we lost some cities that were being developed. I'm confident that as fuel prices continue to go in the right direction, we'll begin to get some of that service back. As a matter of fact, we're already beginning to have some discussions with carriers to bring some of that service back. Some of those cities that were cut are routes that were offered by other airlines. Now, in order to continue to grow air service, I have to contain the cost of the airlines. There's a direct relationship between expanding service, introducing new service, and the cost of operating at an airport. And I can do that one of two ways. I can either cut cost. Well, there has not been sufficient investment in the airport over the years, and so cutting cost is not a primary option. Containing cost is an option, but cutting cost is not a primary option of ours. We've also left a lot of money on the table in terms of non-airline related revenues, and so what you may have seen over the last few months is an aggressive effort to expand the revenue base at the airport. Some measures have been rather simple. Other measures have been somewhat controversial. All the same, efforts to try and grow revenues for the airport. To the extent that we can grow revenues at the airport.